Bougie Rouge, more like Boozy Rouge. Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. My name is Heather, and on this channel we like to walk a very fine line between a shopping addicted makeup monster and a responsible adult with a makeup hobby. I really enjoy eyeshadow singles, duochromes, multichromes, palettes, blush, clearly, bronzer, highlight, lip gloss, basically everything except for pressed glitter. Today, we're going to be talking about some alternatives you might already have in your collection to the new Jaklyn Hill Bougie Rouge Collection. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, stick with me. We're getting into it right now. Okay, so I think the first thing we should do is talk about the collection itself, right? Because we want to know what we're kind of duping the vibes of. This collection has 2 different face palettes that have 6 pans of matte blush each. It has 4 different kind of shimmery blushes. Then it has 4 different blush sticks and 5 different sort of, I think they look like the Ultra Blotted Lips from ColourPop. You guys are going to have to let me know if you think they look like something different, but that's exactly what they look like in demos that I've seen. That's exactly it. And everybody hated on that formula. So I'll be very curious to see what people have to say about this formula, because it's probably the exact same. But anyway, the thing that drew me in the most for this collection was the blush palettes. Now I have the Lunar Beauty Moon Prism blush palette, and that palette is stunning. Okay, stunning. And when I saw these palettes, I was like, wow, okay, so they have a cool toned one and a warm toned one, and they have some super vibrant and pigmented blushes. So immediately I was like, well, I have to buy it because I don't have anything in my collection that's like that, right? And then I started thinking about it, and I was talking it over with some of my friends, and then I realized I have a lot of things in my collection that would serve as a vibrant blush that may not necessarily be a blush, but would give me this kind of like blushy look that I'm going for, clearly. So I wanted to talk you through all of the things that I have in my collection that are kind of similar, because maybe it'll jog your memory for some things that you have in your collection. And if you think I'm kidding about having a lot of different options, let me show you the basket. This is the basket we're working with, people. All right, you guys, we're going to go through this a little bit quickly because I have probably 55,000 blushes that I want to show you guys, and they're kind of divided up into categories. So I'm going to start with Juvia's Place, because Juvia's Place is really what like prompted me to think of doing this video in the first place, because I thought about, first of all, this palette is what prompted me to do this video, okay? The Warrior 3 by Juvia's Place. I got this as a gift from a great friend of mine, Emily. Hi, Em. And I was thinking about this particular pan right here. This pan right here is nice, vibrant, pigmented blush. I'm not going to swatch everything because we're going to be here all night, but this like super blushy, pinky tone, I was like, this could give me that super rouged up look without having to go and spend $45 on a palette. And I think it actually leans more of like a cool toned pink, so I think that that would work really nicely towards that like cooler toned 6-pan palette. So this prompted me to then look through the rest of my collection and say, what else do I have in my collection that would really be like this nice, vibrant, rougey blush kind of moment? And it's a lot, let me tell you. So let's go through Juvia's Place first. In addition to Warrior 3, you have the Deuce by Juvia's. Certainly you could use this kind of pinky toned shade here as a blush if you're feeling super creative, or if you have a deeper skin tone, this would probably look really lovely on you as a cool toned blush. I think this one is so pretty, and it pools a little pink, so I think you could get away with it, but very cool toned. So that would be like a fun and interesting shade to use. Again, we're not going to swatch everything. We'll be here all night. The Festival by Juvia's Place. You have this nice, vibrant pink in the center here. I think that would be absolutely perfect for a blush. If you're looking for this very vibrant blush look, which is what those palettes are selling you. The other one that I thought would work, this shade right here actually reminds me a little bit more of the warm toned palette, because it's more of these like corally, almost orange leaning shades. Certainly you could mix it with the orange or the yellow if you wanted to bring it even lighter, but I think you could get away with using even this one by itself as a blush, and again would be very pretty. And then this is the Fumi palette, which was a limited edition palette that they did. I don't know why I still have the little cover in there. But it again has super hot pink in it. It has a purple in it. It has a red. So you could mix any of these, and actually even the sister to sister shade, you could mix those four mattes in any combination and get some really pretty blushes out of it. But I think this one is what drew me in to say, like, this would work for a replacement for those Jaklyn Hill palettes. Now, if you don't have those big ones, you may have some of these little ones, and there's a bunch of really good colors in the little ones. The mauves, of course, if you're a deeper skin tone, you could use some of these shades as like combinations with these pink shades to make a nice blush. If you're a lighter skin tone, then just using these two. This is very cool tone that I think that would work really nicely as a blush. The berries, this one right here, it's got a little sparkle in it, but I think once you blend it out, it's going to completely go away. And then you've got these kind of shades here that you could deepen it up a little bit, or you have this shade where you could lighten it up a little bit. So again, you can kind of mix and match to get what you want to get a perfect shade. And then of course, where else do we turn to for hot pink blush but the Sweet Pinks palette? These three shades, all the mattes in here, I think would work as blushes. Depending on how crazy and hyper you want your blush to be, or how calmed down, you could kind of mix them together, but I think they would make perfect blushes. Now, one other honorable mention that I'll say right now would be the Coming to America Royal Heritage palette. I think these two shades would work nicely as kind of a vibrant blush too, if you were trying to travel light and maybe just have like one palette that could work for eyes and blush. This might be the one for you. Let's dig into some more. So the next blush options that I wanted to talk about actually come from these BH Cosmetics Sweet Shop palettes. Now certainly the oh Lord. I need to stop. The Cotton Candy palette, I think you could easily use this one as a nice punchy blush. And then depending on how adventurous you want to be, you could mix it with a little bit of this kind of purpley shade here called Light and Airy. And that would give you a little bit cooler of a tone to kind of bring that down a little bit. But I think those would make a perfect blush. If you're of a deeper skin tone, or if you want to be very adventurous, I think you could use some of these cherry on top shades, namely this one, but maybe mixed with either this one or this one to kind of bring that up a little bit. And I think again this would lean more towards that like warm toned blush palette. But when I was pulling out different palettes to show you guys, I wanted to show you options for both, because even though I'm drawn more towards the cool toned one, that doesn't mean everybody else is. So I wanted to give you some options for both. And the other palette that you could mix that with then would be this palette, which is the orange one. And I think this shade here would make a really pretty blush. Again, you could lighten it with some of these other two shades, but you could even deepen it up with this one to kind of bring the intensity of that shade down a little bit so that it's not quite so vibrant. But I think those would make great colors for sort of that orangey blush that you get in the warm toned palette. If you're looking for something that's a little bit cheaper, you could definitely pick up this Profusion Fuchsia palette, which looks like this. You have this really pretty bright pink shade which you could use as a blush, and you can mute it down with any of these three shades here. And then you do have this kind of purpley shade, so if you wanted to make it a little bit richer, darker, more intense, you could do that as well. $5, not a bad option. I also pulled out the Ooh La La and Orange You Glad palettes from ColourPop. Again, you have some vibrant choices here that you can mix with some of these lighter choices to kind of get a shade that's going to work for your skin tone, that's going to be warm, but not too warm, not too bright, not too electric for what you're trying to do for your look. Same thing with Ooh La La, which I'll hold carefully. And again, you have this nice pinky shade. You've got a couple of like purpley mauvey kind of shades that you can blend them together to kind of get that perfect color for what you're looking for. When it comes to using eyeshadow palettes for blush, just remember that just because you have a big brush doesn't mean you can't like pinch it to get it into the actual pan and then kind of bring it out before you fluff it onto your face. So don't feel like you have to use it only as an eyeshadow just because it's a small pan. You can still work with that. Alright, some other options that I have, BH Mimosa Palette, which looks like this. Again, you've got some kind of corally shades here. You've got this raspberry and pomegranate shades here. You've got vibes here. I think those could all give you some nice vibrant kind of colors for your cheeks rather than picking up a $45 palette. And you may already have some of these in your collection. That's kind of the whole point. So certainly you could always go buy something if you wanted to go buy something, but the point of this is to think about what you have in your own collection that might serve the same purpose and be able to use your makeup in more than one way so that you're getting good use out of it, getting your money's worth out of it, instead of just continually buying stuff, which is what I always do. Alright, Lorella Cosmetics, the Sweetheart Palette. This one is a cool tone pink dream. You've got this, 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 this. They would all be perfect. You can deepen it up with any of these 3 shades here. You could even make it a little smoky with this one if you really wanted. Although when I used this shade, it wasn't very pigmented, so I would definitely stick to these more vibrant pinks and then deepen it up as needed with those kind of deeper shades. Couple of older palettes here. This is the NYX Rainbow Palette, which they're re-releasing, I think, for Pride. They usually do. But you could easily just plop your brush into this center quad in the top here, and you would have a really pretty kind of pinky orangey blush look. Or if you have the Profusion Neons, you could do the same thing. Again, these are going to be vibrant tones. So you have Rad, Bro, Like, Gnarly, even Heat Wave. You could mix those together, or you could pick from those to give you a really nice, pretty, vibrant blush look. How many times am I going to say that? Don't drink every time I say that. Only I'm allowed to do that. Alright, Poppy Cosmetics Neon Drip Palette. Again, lots of pinky corally shades, some yellows. You've got this purpley and pinky shades you could use that are more cool toned. I think these shades together would make excellent blushes. Excellent. Oh, my hair pulled. Not in a fun way. Alright, and this is from Makeup Maniacs. This is their Strawberry Lemonade palette. This shade definitely a little bit more cool tone leaning, which I think would be really nice. This shade, this shade, this shade though, I think definitely lean more warm. This feels almost exactly the same as the one shade in the, is it the Cool Tone palette, the bottom right, that's like that raspberry-ish shade. They both have kind of a raspberry shade at the bottom right of the palettes, but that's what this shade reminds me of. And again, I think it would make a great blush. And you may already have something like that in your collection. So go take a look and get a snack, because this is a long video. Nomad Antilles palette. Again, you could kind of just run your brush through this kind of central area and get some pinky orangey kind of options here. This is very cool tone, very cool toned. Got a couple little warmer toned options here. And then this one in particular, you also have some kind of shimmery type colors. So like this one and this one are very shimmery. And so they would give you a really nice blushy sheen if you want like that glowy luminous blush to kind of replace those loose blushes that she has in her collection. This would be a great option for that. Alright, and if you want to lean definitely a lot warmer, the other Nomad palette to think about would be the Cartagena Magica palette. And you know, you have these kind of orangey corally type shades you could easily dig into and get to like a warm blush kind of look. And you could go very vibrant if you use something like this, or you could go a lot lighter and softer. It really depends on how intense you want it to be. And then the last one in this stack is the Strawberry Dreams palette from Lunar Beauty. And of course, you have this whole row here in the middle. You could literally just go right back and forth and get yourself a nice beautiful blush tone out of that. You've got this super poppin' pink here that you could use easily to create a blush if you want that really, really bright kind of look to it. So I think those would be some great, great options for you. And then let's talk quickly through a couple of palettes that have like maybe just like 1 or 2 shades that would work for this type of process. One would be Escape Pod by Kaleidos, this kind of pinky shade there. Why is this not closing? There it goes. The Masquerade palette by Juvia's. This one I store in a different place than the rest of my Juvia's palettes, but these 2 shades right here would work really nicely depending on your skin tone to kind of make a really bold, vibrant blush. From Glamlight, the Cake palette. Nope. This is Ice Cream Dream. From Ice Cream Dream, you have these 3 shades up here, which I think would work nicely. Or you could use this little duo down here if you want something a little bit softer. Because again, not everything in those palettes was that vibrant and intense. Some of them were a little bit softer. So I think you could easily use these 2 down here to make something softer. Orange Cream would be a great, like, kind of warm toned, soft, kind of apricot type blush. I think that would be perfect. Or you could kind of bump it up a little bit with Red Velvet or Pumpkin. And then lastly from Glamlight, is the Cake Palette. So the Cake Palette has Raspberry, Peach, Cranberry, Red Velvet, and I think you could use any combination of those to give yourself a nice, vibrant, and intense blush. This palette in particular I think is very almost neon in appearance, so if you're going to use this palette, definitely very light-handed. So let's say what you're looking for more so is like a full blush palette. You want that experience of being able to kind of dabble between different products in a palette. I have several that you could pick from. First would be that Trixie Cosmetics palette. This is actually the palette that I'm wearing right now. And it looks like this. You have a super vibrant pink here and then something that's a little bit softer. You can blend the 2 together, which is what I've done. And then you do have an iridescent white to pink highlighter that you can also pull from to kind of complete that look. The other blush palettes that I kind of bring to mind in terms of just like really quality blush palettes, this is the Saharan Blush Volume 2. It reminds me a little bit more of the warm toned option that she had shown with this kind of orangey shade. You've got this pink, but it's a little bit more warmer of a pink. This purple would be a little bit more cool toned that you could potentially pull from. And then these would definitely be more like glowy blushes, similar to the powdered blushes that she was talking about in her demo. Now I hesitate to mention this one because controversies, but I will tell you that this blush palette is pretty nice, so if you already have it in your collection, you could use it. I wouldn't necessarily advocate for buying it. I wouldn't necessarily advocate for going to buy it, but this is the Ofra Island Time palette, and this blush here is actually one of those like really pretty cool toned vibrant pinks, so you could use that one. And then these 2 kind of remind me more of the warm tone shades, the warm tone palette that she had referenced or that she had created, so you do have some options there. Again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend going to buy a product from Ofra at this point, but if you already have it in your collection, you could get some use out of it. Another option would be the Colored Rain Empowered collabs. So they had some really pretty blushes. This one just, it has such an intensity to it that I often don't reach for it because I'm like almost afraid of it because it's so intense. But I think for a situation like this where you really want that like intense kind of blushy, blushed up look, a blush like this would be absolutely perfect for it. So if you do have these in your collection, dig them out because they would be a great time to use them. Newer to me is the Cali Kissed palette from Smashbox, and this actually has 2 really intense, I think both leaning very warm toned blushes. You do have kind of this blush topper here too if you want some like luminescence to the cheeks, but these 2 blushes would be absolutely perfect for this type of look. And then of course, since I mentioned it earlier, I'll show it to you now. This is the Lunar Beauty Moon Prism Blush Palette. Oh my Lanta, it's so pretty. And I think this is the thing that really set me off about these blush palettes from Jaklyn Hill Cosmetics, is the fact that Manny did this palette and I think it's $30. If I remember correctly, I think this was $30. Or you could buy it in a bundle with 3 of the glosses and it was like $60 for the whole bundle. So that made this like $30 and each of the lip glosses $10. Plus or minus, like either way, I mean this, like it looks very similar to the packaging that she has, the mirror, the magnetic closure, it's otherwise cardboard, you've got 6 pans, you've got, you know, kind of this reflective backing for the pans. They look so similar that I don't understand why this can be 30 and hers has to be 45. I know she said it's her formulas, but like her lip formulas had metal in them, so I don't know if we can really worry too much about her formulas being so special. Although I guess it's rare. I don't think anybody else has metal in their lip formulas. And then the next one would be the NYX Sweet Cheeks palette. This one definitely has more warm tones in it, I think, than cool tones. You kind of have these 2 cool tones, but everything else kind of leans a little warm. You've got this orangey shade, you've got these kind of mauve-y, pinky shades here. You've got a couple things that are a little bit shimmery so that you can really like mix this up and make a custom shade that's going to be nice and vibrant for you. I think this would be a great option if you have this in your collection. Like, do you really need another 6-pan palette? Probably not. Although, who am I to judge? You know what I mean? Like, this isn't even all of my blushes. Alright, let's talk about some cool tone blushes next, because I just have a couple of those. One would be this Essence Mosaic blush. This is the Berry Connection. If you're looking for a cool toned blush that's going to be probably like matte to satin finish and is going to be really affordable, I would direct you towards this. This is, I think, about $2.99, something like that. So really affordable if you get it at Ulta. If you're making a full order, you know, the $3.50 off 15 coupon would apply to this, so you could basically get it for free. I think this blush is really nice. It's very soft, very, very easy to get like a nice blushy look. Wouldn't be as intense as some of these other blushes that I'm showing you, but I think it would work well for kind of what we're talking about. If you have Hervana from Benefit Cosmetics, that would be another one that is very cool toned. It would be easy to pull from and make, you know, a nice blushy look. And you could try to sort of get a little bit more of the purpley parts of this in order to kind of blush drape. But I think what you're going to end up doing is just swirling your brush together, because the segments are so small. I'm not sure that you can get individual segments out of that one. But alright, and of course it wouldn't be one of my videos if we didn't have the battery die midway through. But what I was saying is Down Boy blush from The Balm. Very pretty, cool toned, kind of softer blush. Again, this isn't going to give you that like super vibrant blushy look, but it is going to give you something nice and cool toned that you can really kind of get this like blushy, drapey kind of appearance if you wanted to go with that and you're of a fair skin tone. Alright, let's talk glowy blushes next, because I apparently love glowy blush, because I have a lot of it. And I have some warm and cool options in this particular like collection of blushes, but I just kind of lumped them all together because when I think of them as like super glowy rather than like warm or cool to begin with. The first would be the Tartiste, I don't know, Pro Glow and Blush Palette. And it opens up like this, and then you have these 4 beautiful blushes on the bottom here. I think these shades are all really pretty, very glowy, so if you want that kind of blush drapey glowy look, pull something like this out of your collection. This has been around for ages, so I'm sure if you still have it in your collection, you could make some good use of it. The next one would be Too Faced Natural Face Palette. Oh, I love how much this smells. It smells like sunscreen. Ooh, let's not show you all my sins. Alright, so this Pink Wing shade is nice and vibrant, a little bit glowy, kind of like a satin glowy finish. I think it would look really, really pretty, and it would give you kind of that blushy, drapey kind of appearance that you're going for if you're trying to dupe out the vibes of these palettes. If you're diehard for Jaklyn Hill, which I used to be, you'd have this Becca highlighter palette with Champagne Pop and Prosecco Pop. And you do have these 2 options here. This one is definitely more warm toned, more like satin matte type finish. And then you have this one, which is super, super glowy. Either of these shades would be perfect for this type of scenario that we're trying to dupe out. And then I definitely could not forget to mention the Natasha Denona Diamond and Blush Palette. This one, of course, I picked up on a super discount because I'm not paying $90 for this. But this glowy kind of formula here definitely would be, you know, that nice glowy blush. This is pigmented as heck. So if you want to do some blush draping, like, go ahead and throw this on with a sponge all over your face. You could do your whole face with one sponge, let me tell you. And then this powder is definitely more of like a satin. It has a bit of like a gold sheen to it when you put it onto the cheeks. So I think that topped over top of either of these 2 other choices would be very, very pretty as well. And then I have one more blush palette, and then we'll talk about some individual blushes. The Beauty Bakery Cotton Candy Palette. If you have this one, I feel this is definitely more warm toned, but I think these other ones almost lean, these two definitely lean cool. This one almost gives you like that sunburnt warm toned. It looks a little more cool toned in the viewfinder, but in person it looks a little bit more warm toned. Definitely lots of sheen here, lots of glam here. You're going to be able to drape this all over the place. So this could be a really great option for you as well if you have this in your collection, and it's pretty affordable and from a black owned makeup brand. So all good things. Alright, some individual blushes now. The Flower Beauty Pyramids, these things are so glowy, it's out of hand. Really, these should be more like eyeshadow formulas rather than blush formulas. I don't know what Drew was thinking, but she made them. So you have one that's a little warmer, you have one that's definitely a lot cooler, and you can see, I mean, just from moving this around, you can see how much light reflex come off this. It's ridiculous. And a little bit of these goes such a long way. Like, you have no idea. Well, I mean, if you have them, you have an idea because they're a terror to use. But either of these would make for, you know, really pretty glowy blushes. Then I have this Milani blush that I just picked up. This is called Rose Doro. It's a baked blush. It is so pretty. Definitely very warm. Gives you almost that like sunburnt kind of glow to your cheeks. This would be really pretty blushed all over the place with like a brown smoky eye. Like, this would be killer. So that would be a great option if you're looking more towards that warm toned palette or even the loose blushes that she has. The other kind of baked blush that I have, this is the L'Oreal Baked Blush and Brighten blush. Oh my god, in the shade Tropic Hues. Clearly it's late or I've had too much to drink. It could be a combination of both. But definitely very warm toned, very similar to the Rose Doro one. So if you don't have this one, you could consider picking up the Milani one because it's going to be like a lot cheaper. This I got in a BoxyCharm ages ago, probably 2 years ago at this point, but it's a really nice glowy blush. Really, really enjoy that one. Now, if you're feeling something a little more European, we've got the Kiko Milano blush. This is more of a luminous blush. This is from their Unexpected Paradise collection in Dream Coral. Very pretty glowy blush. You could, again, kind of simulate that warm toned blush palette with this one. The other option would be the Nabla Skin Glazing. Can we just take a moment to appreciate how pretty the packaging is for these Nabla Skin Glazing? Oh my gosh, they're so pretty. I just can't. This is in the shade Truth. You can see how much like reflectiveness this has. It is so, so pretty as a glowy blush all over the cheeks. Gorgeous. They just, well, not just, about a year ago, they dropped 2 other shades, Lola and I forget what the other one is, but they're definitely on my list. Despite the fact that I have literally the world's supply of blush, those 2 are on my list at some point. And then the other one from Ofra, this is with March Beauty Word, and it is this blush here. You have the one half that's more matte and one half that's more shimmery, so you can mix them together or you can use them separately. I feel like this leans a little bit more cool toned, so you could use it that way, but I think it would be great for like blush draping because of the fact that you have the 2 pans there to pick from. Again, I'm not advocating buying anything from this brand right now with everything that's been going on, but if you already have it in your collection, you could make use of it. And then in the last part of this video, I wanted to talk about like some really deep dark blushes. Number one, for people of deeper skin tone who they might, you know, really be interested in deeper colored blushes. And number 2, for the people who really want that like intense, bold, blushy look. And what I've shown so far hasn't been bold enough. Yeah. The first is the Ciate Marbled Light Baked blush, and this is in the shade Dusk. This is a really pretty kind of like berry baked shade. Looks very pretty on the skin. I don't think this would necessarily work for deeper skin tones, but it definitely kind of has that more like smoky berry kind of shade. So for light or medium skin tones, I think that would work really nicely to give you a more intense blush. Now this one from Folly Fire, I got this in a Try Beauty box, and it is a super pigmented blush. It's kind of like a muted bricky red type shade. This is called I think it's called Hot Terrain, but it's a baked bronzing blush. So it's supposed to be like a brush bronzer hybrid, whatever. That's fine, but I think it would work really nicely, especially in that like warm toned palette that she had. I think this would kind of replicate some of those vibes. So I thought I would show that one to you in case you get a subscription box that gives you blushes, you know, that could potentially duplicate everything that we've been talking about for the last probably 45 minutes. Alright, and then I want to talk about this 3.0 from ColourPop. These are the Wine Not collection blushes. I have Cruel Intentions, Brute Flute, and Cheerio. So Brute Flute and Cheerio are both a pearlized finish, so they give a little bit of like a sheen to the cheeks when you put them on. And then Cruel Intentions is a matte. So all of these are going to give you that kind of deep, this will be more like red toned, berry toned blush rather than like kind of the traditional more pinky toned blush. But in that more warm toned blush palette, I feel like things pull more of like an orangey, almost red berry leaning. So I think these would kind of work for some of that as well. And then the last one is probably my most off-the-wall blush that I own in my collection. This is the Cover FX Blush Duo in Sweet Mulberry, and it is dark, but I think it's really pretty, and I think you can use this luminous side to kind of bring a little bit more light to the cheeks if you wanted to do kind of a blush draping kind of thing. You may want to mix this with something else, that'd be totally fine, but I wanted to mention it because I had so many options that I just could not rationalize the purchase of those big palettes or anything from that Jaklyn Hill collection, despite the fact that I think the marketing and the packaging and the design and everything, aesthetically, I'm on board with everything except for the raised J's on the packaging. I really don't like that because then it is a bear to store. But like the whole like vibe of this sort of like Rococo meets super blushy moment kind of thing, I am 100% here for that. But since I have so much blush already in my collection, and I also have so many eyeshadows that would work as blushes for these more vibrant shades that I'm kind of craving or lusting after in those two palettes, I think I can easily step back and use what I have in my collection rather than reaching out to purchase a new palette, especially for such a high price point. So with all of that said, probably 2 hours later, you're going to have to let me know in a comment down below, did you pick up anything from the Jaklyn Hill launch? Are you thinking about picking anything up? Was there something that called to you but you found something in your collection that would work, you know, maybe better for you or would work equally as well? Definitely let us know in a comment down below. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye!